Basically, there was a call that came into the New Haven non-emergency number at 1:51 in the afternoon about a bomb threat. The individual referenced specific locations, and we passed along that information quickly to the Yale PD, and they have evacuated the areas between York, Elm, College, and Crown. Before I hand it over to Chief Dominguez, I wanted to say thank you to New Haven Police Department, New Haven Fire Department, and the Yale PD for acting so quickly. We take these threats very, very seriously, and clearly we are looking to track down the individual that made this call. And I'll hand it over to Chief Dominguez.
Hello, everybody. So just to add on to what the mayor has already said, New Haven PD and obviously Yale PD are working in conjunction currently. We do have our emergency services activated, specifically our HDU unit with our bomb dogs. The area will be shut down for a considerable amount of time because at some point we will have to make sure all the buildings are safe. We have called in extra resources in terms of other explosive dogs, just because what we have locally is not nearly enough just to make sure that we are keeping everybody safe and we are doing a thorough job. I will turn it over to Chief Higgins, just more specifics for what is specific to Yale, but this area you can anticipate we will be shut down for several hours just in order to make sure that we are safe. We are doing everything to make sure that the surrounding areas, the students, the community are safe, and we're treating this as if it is a legitimate threat. However, at this time we are still working on all of who the caller was and everything that happened. It did come into our non-emergency. Our PSAP did a fantastic job trying to get as much information and keeping the individual on the phone as long as we possibly could so that we can get as much information to be able to give to both detective divisions and to both police departments. I'll turn it over to Chief Higgins.
Thank you, Chief. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron L. Higgins. I am the Chief of Police and Director of Public Safety at Yale University. Upon receiving information from the New Haven Police Department this afternoon, the Yale Police immediately began to evacuate students and other community members, visitors as well, from the Yale buildings that were identified. We immediately sent out a text message to the entire university indicating the buildings that were identified so that members would also get this information on their phones as well. All the buildings have been evacuated. Students and others have been moved to locations indoors. Initially, they were outdoors staging on the New Haven Green and other open spaces. They are now in locations around the campus so they can be warm, make calls, do what they need to do. This is an ongoing investigation. We are thankful for our partnership with the New Haven Police Department and the City of New Haven. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Alston, and your team as well. I've also been in contact with Commissioner Jim Ravella of the Connecticut State Police, who is also sending resources into New Haven as well to assist with this endeavor. I wish I had it right now, but pretty soon the university is going to be posting information on a website which will provide updates to the media and anyone else. Thank you.
Chief Dominguez, do you have any information as to the number of buildings that have been cleared, given the all clear, or we still don't know that yet?
No buildings have been given the all clear. It's still an active investigation. We do have the number. We do have the buildings that was given to Yale that we have evacuated. So at this time, we're still very actively investigating, and nothing has been cleared yet.
And how many buildings have been evacuated? And which buildings?
Yeah, I can speak to that. 1 second here.
I heard you say all buildings ended up being evacuated, but 7 may have potentially had a bomb had the threat.
Let me be more specific. First and foremost, the website that you'll be able to get information from is emergency.yale.edu. That's emergency.yale.edu. The buildings that were identified were the University Theater, Jonathan Edwards, Yale Art Gallery, Vanderbilt Hall, Bingham Hall, Welch Hall, and Grace Hopper.
And what time did you get the call, or what time did the police non-emergency?
We received the call from New Haven just after 2 p.m. this afternoon.
And roughly how many people have been evacuated from all those buildings? Do you have a rough count?
I don't have a rough count of how many people have been evacuated. But as you can imagine, some of these are residential college dormitories, so there's several hundred students that live in a residential college dormitory.
Just to be clear, 7 buildings actually had the threat, but you said before all buildings were evacuated. Is that still? Is that? Still
If I said that, I misspoke. But all buildings have not been
So
evacuated.
only 7 buildings
Yeah.
that had the threat were evacuated.
The buildings that I've identified,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I want to make sure.
Okay.
Chief Higgins, did the caller provide a reason behind the bomb threat?
He did not provide a reason. I'm not going to get into anything else that the caller may or may not have said at this time.
And we heard reports that other buildings would be evacuated later. Was there a particular reason for the threats called in?
Well, when you think about proximity, so out of an abundance of caution, some buildings that were proximate to these buildings that were identified, we had to make the call to evacuate those buildings as well.
And how many calls did the police receive? Was this one call with a bomb threat, or were there multiple calls?
There was one call. Caller indicated multiple locations.
Any idea if it's a student?
No, there's no way of determining that.
When do we expect residential colleges to reopen, and what will be the plan if they're not able to open before nighttime?
Thank you for that question. Well, one of the reasons why we moved students off the green and out of other open spaces was so that they can be somewhere warm. They've had bathroom facilities, food, and any essentials. So where they are right now, they're fine. I anticipate once the state police, they arrived just before we walked down here. Our bomb squads are right now talking. They're going to be splitting up into teams, and they're going to be conducting searches of each of those buildings that's been evacuated. And once those buildings have been cleared, students and others will be allowed back into those buildings. So my hope is that within the next 2-3 hours, hopefully, students will be allowed back in those buildings.
Has any federal assistance come to the scene yet?
I've been in contact with the head of the FBI for the state of Connecticut. We also have someone working with us right now. Absolutely. This is a unity of effort. We have partnership with the city of New Haven, their police department, their fire department, the FBI. So we're all in this together.
Can I ask who you're working with right now that you mentioned?
The New Haven Police Department, the New Haven FD, the Office of Emergency Management for the city of New Haven, who's been extraordinary, as well as FBI. You're welcome.
There's teams of different bombs, different dogs from each of those agencies that are going through the buildings as well?
There will be.
And how are you determining credibility on this call? What are you acting on abundance of caution?
We're always going to err on the side of caution, but I'm not going to get into how we're determining credibility on any call right now.
Chief
Can you say anything
Dominguez,
about what specifically was said in the threat that was given, or they just said that bombs were placed in these buildings?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into any specifics of the call. The general information that I provided is just that, but this is an active investigation, active right now. In addition to the bomb squads and all the people out here in different uniforms doing the work that they're doing, there are investigators who are working right now diligently. Thank
Chief
you.
Dominguez, can you talk about how other businesses may be impacted by this widespread, shutting down of traffic? Restaurants, Friday night's a big night. What are you telling folks who are thinking of coming into town to do shopping or restaurants?
The city has put out a notice to that there is activity downtown, and if you can avoid downtown currently, to do so. Just the amount of traffic on a Friday already, coupled with a lot of the street closures, people aren't able to get through. So vehicular traffic currently isn't going to be able to get through some of the major arteries. Like I said, we hope to open it up as soon as possible. However, safety is the #1 priority. So however long it takes, unfortunately, if it impacts traffic and businesses today, we would rather everyone be safe. And that really is our first priority.
What's the procedure for making sure that all of the buildings are empty of students and totally clear?
I imagine Yale has confirmed that all of the buildings are empty of students by your policy and procedures in place.
And then what will be the procedure for sort of going through the buildings and making sure they're sort of clear for when people can go back in?
So we have several bomb teams that will be going through that, who are very skilled in this. That's what they're kind of developing their plans now. So everyone needs to, be patient with us so that we can make sure that this painstaking process is done correctly so that everyone is safe to return as soon as possible.
And you guys are working to identify who called this in. Right?
Yeah, so while this current operation is happening here, we do have detectives from both Yale and New Haven who are working together to put all the pieces of information that we have from the call and to determine who this person was and to try to identify them, yes.
Could you repeat which streets are currently closed to car traffic? Do you have that?
Thank you, Mayor.
So it's a block or it's a square, it's multiple blocks, but it's York, Elm, College, and Crown.
Okay.
And the Chief Higgins said we hope we'll be able to open up the area in 2 to 3 hours, but we also think it's really important to underscore that it might be much longer and that people should prepare for that just in case, because it's going to take a lot of time to go through all these buildings and make sure that they're safe.
Okay. Do you all have to call in for support from other cities because you have, police and fire are on duty for this?
Police for regular calls for service, we do not. We have enough officers working. What we did call for help was for other bomb units to be able to help with their explosive dogs, because the amount of explosive dogs that we currently have in our region is not sufficient to be able to do a thorough search, and the amount of buildings. It takes a lot out of the dog. We want to make sure the dogs are fresh and the dogs are able to continue working.
Can you talk about the person calling in on a non-emergency line? Is that an indication to you that it was something that was pretty well planned out?
I wouldn't jump to any conclusions based on the call that came in. It just so happens that it came in on the non-emergency call, a non-emergency line. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So someone can't call a 911 line if they're not from New Haven, right?
Okay.
Chief Dominguez, there were reports that said there were 40 bombs on the call. Is there any veracity to that comment?
Were any of the details of the call that we're not going to confirm right now, just the locations and that it's shut down. So if we have any updates, we absolutely will reconvene to give any further updates that are significant in any way, or that it's all clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.